Hi, Mark, are you there? Can you hear me? All right. So I want to welcome everyone to the Sales Experts channel, and Mark Boundy is here with me. I'm Liz Heiman, and Mark is working out sound issues. So we're going to just get started while Mark figures that out. It doesn't matter how many times we do these things, we inevitably find that we're having technical difficulties. So Mark's going to join us with sound in just a moment. If you haven't been on the Sales Experts channel in the past, then I want to welcome you and I'm so glad you joined us. And I want to tell you a little bit about some of the speakers and some of the content that you'll find here on the Sales Experts channel. So I am friends with and colleagues with all of the people that are on this Sales Experts channel, and they are some of the leading experts in the world on sales and sales leadership. So if you are interested in referral selling or presenting skills or hiring or anything that you can think of about sales, this is the place to be. Check out the channel and meet some of my friends, and you will be amazed at how this will help your sales outcomes and your sales leadership outcomes. So, as we get started, I want to see if I can figure out how to share my slides. And whoops, well, is that going to work or not work? This is a brand new format for us. We're learning how to use it. There you go. There's a Sales Experts channel, and there's Mark, and there's Liz. This is forget the new normal, go to the new better. What's changed from COVID-19? So we all are living in a new reality, but we're going to find that some of this new reality stays and some of it doesn't. So let's talk a little bit about the Sales Experts channel and how this works. You will have the opportunity to interact with us and ask questions. So please feel free to do that. We love having questions. We're going to chat a little bit, but we'd like to hear your input and we'd like to answer your questions. If you're having difficulty, if you cannot hear, please go to the Bright Talk Help and they will help you figure out what's going on. So let's kind of just jump in. Let's see. There we go. Hey, Mark, can I hear you yet? So I am going to go ahead and get started. Can't read your sign. So, all right. Well, let's just get started. Mark's going to keep working on content on sound while I get started. So, what are we in for? What is this new normal? How does it look? How does it sound? How does it feel? And in some ways, it feels exactly the same as it always has. And in some ways, it feels so different. I don't know if you're like me, but I sort of feel like one minute I'm sitting around thinking, the world hasn't changed one little bit, and I'm living exactly the way I was living before. And other days, I feel like, wow, this is just such a new reality. I don't know if you guys are feeling that, but if you have a way to share, I would love to hear how this is changing the way you feel, the way you think, the way you interact with clients. See if you can share. See if you can share with me how you're feeling about this new reality that we're living in. And if you're wondering the same thing we are, which is what is the new reality that's going to come out of all of this? The first thing is that, who knew that we would be in a recession or starting a recession? Our growth as of this morning, the U.S. economy has contracted 4.3%. The Chinese economy over 6%. That's huge. So what does that mean? Well, when consumers lose their income, then consumer-oriented businesses struggle. And regardless of who we're selling to, whether we're selling B2B or B2C, we're impacted by this. And what we find is that some companies are growing like crazy, while other companies are contracting and they're afraid and they're worried and they're not really sure what to do. And in either of those cases, you may be finding it difficult to interact with your customers because the world is changing so dramatically.
Hey.
There he is, Mark. Welcome. Okay.
Thank you. Man, you are smooth being able to cover in an emergency. I had to log out and log back in again. I can't explain why. It's wrestling with technology, I guess. So why don't you continue, Liz? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, we were just talking about what happens when a recession comes, and maybe you want to, pick up here, because I was talking about how when people lose their jobs, how all of, consumers stop buying and businesses stop selling, yep. And it becomes increasingly difficult. Right. Because everybody's impacted. And why don't you, talk to us a little bit about what does that mean for rehires and all of those kinds of things? So
we're in a recession. We all know that. And it's not going to just be a poof, a miracle occurs coming out of it and we're back to normal. So there's a lot of people who lost jobs who aren't going to get jobs, which means that there's a lot of people who don't have consumers who don't have cash, which means there's businesses that are going to be hurting. And that's kind of in the business to consumer path. In the business to business path, every time that there has ever been a corporate restructuring, a recession, anything, what happens inside, and this is social psychology, science, tells us that people in groups are going to hunker down and become highly risk averse. I call it going into the foxhole, and kind of rule of thumb is 6 months. So even when you've been told as a salesperson in B2B, nothing's changed, the same people, don't worry about it. Even though nothing has changed, nothing's going to happen. So, and what you have to do as a seller is to become the person who helps them, the first person who helps them feel comfortable poking their head out of the foxhole. And that means making them feel like a buying decision, which is a change, which is exactly what people are worried about. Make them feel that this is the safe choice. It is a conservative choice. Make them feel like you're helping them make a good decision. And that means having a great business conversation. So you have to have a very innovative approach to value and where it's at. So,
and I want to add, Mark, just a little bit to that. And that is, I keep hearing sellers tell me they're afraid. I don't really feel comfortable calling right now. I don't really feel comfortable having that conversation right now. And the truth of the matter is we still have to have those conversations. We still have to help our customers. And what we need to do is work from a place of compassion while we're having those conversations so that we actually are able to understand what's going on with them and how we can help them to be successful.
Liz, you couldn't be more correct. It is important to be compassionate, but if all you're doing, what was really good for the first 2 weeks of this thing was just calling and showing compassion. If that's all you do, you're not doing anything. And if all you do is go on webinars, all you do is participating in Zoom fatigue. So it's not enough to be compassionate. What you need is empathy and to understand their business and their situation. And so that's kind of leads us to the title of the talk. And we aren't looking for a new normal because there's not going to be a new normal. There's going to be a series of rolling normals. We're going to be in a deep recession and then people were going to come out. We've got 53 jurisdictions, 50 governors, Puerto Rico, DC, and Guam. And one of those jurisdictions is going to come out of this too early. And it's going to spill over to somebody. And so most experts are saying that we're going to have a roller coaster. We're going to go in and out of lockdown as things get out of control, as somebody goes a little too far, too fast, and then back in. So it's going to be a rolling series of new normal. And so you can't adjust to a new normal because there isn't going to be one.
No. And it's really interesting because this is the time when people start saying, well, what good is a strategy? Strategy is not going to do me any good when I have to change it every 5 minutes, right? We still need strategy. We still need to be thoughtful about where are we going and how are we going to do it? And what's the best way to use the resources that we have? So we need to build strategy that helps us to be resilient and flexible and adaptable. Strategy doesn't mean stodgy and stuck. Strategy means understanding what is going on around me and making the best decisions I can based on having really good information, or the best possible information. And so we're going to have to think about, who's going to be buying from us now? How are they going to be buying? And how is this going to change? So flexibility, adaptability, resilience, those are going to be key words as we move forward. I think, Mark, this is what we're talking about, right? Don't settle for the new normal. Let's find the new better. Let's figure out how to make sure that we are working in the best, most effective, positive place we can be.
Yeah, I talked to companies all over and a lot of different clients, and what they have said is that the changes are not new things that I have to do. Right now, there's a bunch of things that were on the back burner that were someday, and now they're yesterday.
Right? True.
Like sales training companies say, well, someday I'll get my stuff made virtual. But now it's got to be yesterday. So many of those back burner things became front burner, flaming on hair on fire, front burner. And so it's about flexibility and about understanding, exactly as you said, Liz, understanding your situation and your customer's situation, more importantly, and figuring out how you're going to help them through their situation. And so that leads us to kind of the idea of the value proposition. And this is something I've kind of been harping on lately. And that is the term value proposition has been used in the past as kind of a one size fits all, the best guess of the value proposition that we can blanket the world with and get the best result with. And in the consumer world, that idea has long since passed. And in the business world, we've already known that value propositions are going to have to be personalized. They're going to have to be time stamped and person specific. And so we have to develop personalized, person specific, time specific, outcome specific conversations, not value propositions. I also have some heartburn with the word messaging. You and I talked about this before, right? I looked up the word messaging in 9 different dictionaries. 6 of the dictionaries, it was unidirectional and electronic, like text messaging. Another 2 of those 9, so getting up to 8 of the 9, it was unidirectional. And in the 9th one, there was 3 definitions. The first 2 definitions were unidirectional. The 3rd definition was unidirectional, going back enough times so that we achieve shared meaning. And the idea of messaging and barfing out something that a customer will buy, that has long since passed. So some people say, well, messaging really is the first volley in a conversation, and I'm okay with that. I just know that there are enough people in the world that are drawn into that false siren song, the thinking that there's actually such a thing as a magic pitch.
Well, and I want to just jump in there, because this is my sister and business partner, Alice Heiman, and I always joke about this. What is a pitch? A pitch is when somebody throws a ball at you really, really hard, sometimes right at your head on purpose, right? That's a pitch. And if that's what you're doing to your customers, ouch, right? That's not what they want. They don't want a pitch. They don't want stuff thrown at them. They don't want messaging. They want conversation. And I know that's really where you're going with this, Mark.
Yeah,
is that
no, you're absolutely right.
To have conversation.
And what you're saying, you've said that, and that was before the pandemic. Now people are risk averse. They want to know what's safe for me now. And there has never been a worse time to deliver a pitch or a value proposition or a message. You have to understand the customer's business. So I actually, in the book that I released last month, it came out about 2 days before the world went on lockdown. Very amusing, good timing. But it was really well timed. And so can you share this screen that shows this value network, which is a tool that I have in my book?
Let me see. I could a minute ago.
And so, yeah, thanks. Great work. I mean, you're the tech queen and I'm the tech noob. So here is a value network for a commodity that we can all understand. And it is a commercial carpet that's going into a commercial building. And that rectangle is the feature.
Hang on. Can you see it?
Can everybody see it?
No. Let's see. I can't seem to get it to go up.
While you're doing it, I can explain it. So the carpet is proven to wear longer. So it's a longer wearing carpet. And every customer in the world understands and can wrap their head around kind of the dollars per year conversation. If it lasts 20% longer, I should be happy paying up to 19% more for it. So and still be getting something. And if I'm 15% more, but the problem, and the salespeople are used to having that conversation, and customers are easy to have that conversation. And unfortunately, competitors know that conversation, and all they have to do is, if you're 15% more expensive, I'm going to discount my price by 6%. And then I'm the better buy. But here's the thing. Customers aren't used to thinking through their situation. And so imagine that carpet is sitting underneath your 24/7 customer service organization. And what happens when you have to replace that carpet? So if it wears longer, I have to go through 20% fewer replacement cycles. Every replacement cycle is at least 2 days downtime while they pull the furniture out, scrape the floors, clean the floors, put the new carpet in, put the furniture back in, reconnect computers, apologize for your broken grandchild's photo, run around looking for your lost mug, try to get your password working again, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so if that carpet is underneath your 24/7 customer service department, that's cost of that service interruption is a big deal. As a matter of fact, that cost is greater than the price of the carpet. Now, that not all carpet is underneath a 24/7 customer service. Some of it's in conference room, and you just do that 2-day replacement cycle over the weekend. So if you understand the customer, how they're using it, where they're using it, now you can start to have a value conversation with a customer that they can wrap their head around it easily, but they don't wrap their head around it without your help. And so this value network is a list of all of the hypotheses for the different conversations that you want to have with your customer. And so that's in my book, Radical Value, which is available on Amazon. And
I will get you a link to that. We'll send you a link to that after we have this meeting. But I want to share with you, this is when I kind of want to stop and say, you know what? There's a reason you wrote this in a book that just got published instead of waiting until this moment to publish it, right? This was always good selling. This is what has always been true, that we need to understand each of the different buyers, what matters to them, and have conversations with them about what matters to them. And I think what's really interesting that comes out of this, Mark, is that I often talk to salespeople who say, well, the CEO doesn't want to talk to me. I'm like, well, why doesn't the CEO want to talk to you? Well, the CEO doesn't want to talk to me about carpet. I'm like, well, the CEO might want to talk to you about revenue loss while his or her center is down. They might want to have that conversation with you, right? So if you're going to have a conversation with the CEO, you got to talk to the CEO about something they care about. And if you're going to have a conversation with the facilities manager, you got to have a conversation they care about. So if you talk to the facilities manager about decreases in revenue, they're like, yeah, I don't really know about that. I just know that I got to get people here and move furniture and blah, 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 blah. So you got to talk to the right person about what matters to them, what is valuable to them, right?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, being able to do that has always been, my book is called Radical Value, and value is all about customer outcomes. And so that map, the value network, goes from Where's Longer, which is our feature, and everything else on that value network is a customer outcome. Value is how much a customer wants that outcome. Liz, you and I both met a great man, Bob Miller, long ago, and he was really fond of saying, customers don't buy your product, they don't buy your service, they don't care about either of those things. What they do buy is the outcomes from your product or service. And how much they value your product or service depends on how badly they want those outcomes. So stop talking to them about features and benefits. Start having the conversation with them in their terms, the outcomes. Elite sellers have always done that. And that's how they become elite, is by talking to the customer in the customer's language, outcomes. And in this post-COVID world where everybody is scared, everybody is hunkered down, that is going to go from what elite sellers do to what surviving sellers do.
That's right. And it's really funny because my advice, people say, well, how do I sell now? And my advice hasn't changed. Then my coaching is the same. It's still about start with your customer, understand their problem, and then you can start to talk about how you can help them. But your customer never cared about your product. In fact, Mark, we were joking about this the other day. I wonder if you guys tell me the answer to this as I'm speaking. Have you ever been walking down the street and just went, oh my God, you know what? You know what I want more than anything in the world? A 3/4 inch bolt. Tell me how many of you actually were walking down the street one day and said you needed that. Come on. I'm guessing none of you, because you don't care about the product. You care about the problem that the product solves, right? So if I have a problem, an outcome, I want my friends to come over and hang out with me, but every time they come over and hang out, the table is shaky and their drinks spill all over them and they don't want to come hang out at my house anymore. And if I look at them and go, I got a 3/4 inch bolt that'll fix that problem, they're like, oh, I want a 3/4 inch bolt. But it's really not the 3/4 inch bolt they want. What they want is a solution to a problem, an outcome that they want. They want their friends to be able to come over and hang out, right?
Yep.
So remember, when you start talking about your product instead of your customers' problems, remember you never wanted a 3/4 inch bolt and neither do they, right?
Yeah, and they don't even really want a less wobbly table. What they want is a great time with their friends.
Right.
So it's the need behind the need. So Liz, why don't you? I mean, we were talking a while ago, and that value network, and we've just talked about within that value network, different people are going to care about different things, and so we've started talking a little bit about personas.
Yeah.
And you had some really great insights about personas. And I'd love to, have you share those with everybody, because it's going to be really important in these post-COVID times to understand your people, not as caricatures. So
have you
share us through that.
So let's talk about that. So I wonder how many of you have ever been in a situation where you've been with a marketing team and they're like, we're going to build our personas. And they start saying things like, okay, so persona 1, this is Bob. And Bob is 65 years old. And Bob wears a Rolex watch and drives a Porsche because he's a CEO, right? And you're going, I don't know. What if my CEO is Sharon and she wears an Apple Watch? I don't know. So we start making these caricatures of who people are. And while that may work in a consumer world to some extent, it doesn't work in a B2B world. So what we need to do, again, is start with who is our customer and what is their problem. So you may want to understand CEOs tend to worry about these kinds of things, and facilities managers tend to worry about these kinds of things. That's a really good starting place, not whether or not they wear a Rolex or an Apple Watch, because really, that's not going to impact their buying decision. It's not going to matter whether they have kids in college or not at that point. What matters is they have problems that they need to solve. And how can you solve them? Now, later, once you get to know them, once you understand they're real people and you've had conversations with them, you might understand, hey, you got kids in college. You really need to make sure that your company's functioning well and you're not losing money so you can pay for college. Well, now you're having a conversation with a real person about what's really going on with them. So be very careful about this idea of personas and coming up with this caricature of who it is you think you're talking to, because it isn't helpful. It isn't predictive if it takes you away from the reality of who the people are. And so when we start talking about the new better, we're going to what's really important and what has always been important. Who is this person and what matters to them? Yeah, Mark, what were you going to share?
Well, and that's the thing, that the caricature where you get this full dossier on somebody, the caricature is something that helps a marketing person develop a pitch. And we've already talked about that. Caricatures and dossiers are for pitches. People are for conversations. Right. And conversations are what's going to win. So it's getting back to that, understand the person. And there's a reason why companies like Microsoft have given their top end enterprise salespeople an MBA, because those people talk to C-level executives about business outcomes, not about software. They have business conversations, not bits and bytes, propeller head conversations. And so when you're talking to an executive, you better be able to talk about executive worthy topics in executive language. And so business acumen is part of that. If you haven't done any business acumen, I'm happy to talk to people about that. But it's more than just being able to read a financial statement, but it's definitely about understanding what the person across from the table from you is probably looking for and asking questions to confirm that before you start barfing out a pitch at them.
Well, and I want to say, some of you may be sitting there saying, well, wait a minute. My customers ask me about they want a demo. They want to see what it does. They want the product. They want the features. And I will say that may be true depending upon who you're speaking to and at what point you are in the sales cycle. So there comes a point where you've explained to them that you can solve their problem because you understand it. And you have now worked with them and coming up with a plan. And now they want to know, okay, so how does that really work? Can we work through some of the details? Because I want to make sure I don't have problems on the other side. So there are times when people do care about the features and the details and how it works. But that's not where we start. We never start with our product. We always start with our customer.
Yeah, differentiation comes in different flavors. There's the first kind of differentiation, which is, do you meet the basic standards? And there are, as you said, people who say, I just want to make sure it does this, this, and this. It checks these boxes. And if it doesn't, then you're not in consideration. So I don't know if that's necessarily differentiation, because you're differentiating yourself from the people who got kicked out. But it means you're still the same as everybody who's still in the beauty contest. So differentiation that word is a stretch for that kind of differentiation. Then there's negative differentiation, which is the differentiation where you say you're different, but you're really not. Right? We've been in this market for 25 years. Well, your competitor has been in it for 23 and another competitor has been in it for 35. Do you really want to spend your customers' mental energy telling them why you're not different? So that's negative differentiation. That's differentiation that actually hurts you.
So that's the part of, so what you don't know is that both Mark and I taught Miller Heiman programs. So we both taught programs called Strategic Selling and Conceptual Selling. And one of my favorite things is this part of conceptual selling where we go, so what? And prove it. And so what we imagine is that your buyer, when you say something like, well, we've been in the market for 25 years, your buyer looks at you and says, so what? What's that got to do with me? Right? So every time you're about to say something, remember that's exactly what's going through your buyer's head. So what? What's that got to do with me?
And you're exactly right. And what that program is okay at is helping you, and it guides you up to the step, but doesn't allow you to have the conversation about customer outcomes. The so what, if you talk about customer outcomes, you're doing great, but they don't say talk about customer outcomes. They say don't stop at so what. You better think of a good story, not what that good story is going to be. That's kind of my personal thing.
So let's talk about winning sales organizations, Mark. Yeah. So winning sales organizations are going to be the ones that are going to be able to discuss personalized business outcomes through the entire buyer journey, the right conversation to the right person at the right point in the sale. How do they do that?
Yeah, that sounds like account-based marketing, which is right.
And we could let's do another whole talk on account-based marketing.
Yeah, account-based marketing, for those of you who haven't heard the term, is basically what we've been talking about in strategic selling, which is talking to the right stuff about with the right person at the right time, but using marketing technology to enable those conversations and make those conversations happen much more easily, sometimes even without the salesperson being there. That's all account-based marketing is the marketing using marketing technology to do what salespeople have been doing for 40 years. So I showed you that value network for carpet.
And I'm going to share this one. Hang on one
okay.
Second.
So here's another thing that has happened. Everybody's value, every company's value to your customers has changed in the COVID days. And here's how that's happened. Sorry, everybody. Battery's coming out of the phone. Okay. But it's still on. Okay. So everybody's value has changed, right? We all know that the value of an airfare or of a cruise ship ticket has gone down because the perceived risk has gone up. But the value of your Amazon Prime membership has gone way up. The value of Grubhub and all of the delivery services has gone up. The value of a company who has manufactured in the USA has gone way up lately. And so this is a value network for some mythical hypothetical product. And you can see down the right-hand side is what we've always told our customers, that patriotic pitch. It's made in the USA, saves American jobs. And I will say that it works, but for a lot of companies, not well enough to keep them in business or not well enough to make them super successful. The yellow diagrams are, if you want to customize the product, because we're American, we help you do that more easily. And when we create some joint intellectual property, it's safe. Whereas if you invent that and send it off to a Chinese company, you don't know what's going to happen. And so we've always said that, and it's been useful for some people. So I put a yellow light on that. But there's a whole bunch of things that were theoretical advantages and theoretical customer outcomes that have suddenly become real. We've found out, especially the personal protective equipment manufacturers found out that any part of your supply chain that goes through China means that nothing gets delivered to you. And Apple found that out with iPhones, but people, if the filter medium for your PPE isn't available locally, you can't get masks. Or if the ribbons aren't available locally, or if the little nose clips were made in China, you don't have the tiny little metal nose clip. So suddenly and entire companies and plants have shut down for the want of a tiny little component. And the costs of those in terms of the plant shutdown, laying your people off, furloughing them, unemployment, upset customers, all the costs and the profit, having to furlough your people, and then hoping that you're going to be able to get those people who are pre-trained back afterwards. All of those costs are huge, far more than the tiny price premium you had as an American manufacturer. So if you made ball bearings and so forth here in the States, you were struggling against foreign source bearings, and it used to be that there was an appreciable quality difference, and now there was a smaller quality difference. Look at all the other things that happen just because you have a lower risk supply chain. And now is the time for you to have those conversations with your customers, like what's happening because you couldn't get ball bearings, and what's happening to your plant, and how much is that costing you, and how much more expensive am I now? Really, that's all? And you've been going to China, and now you've gotten hit by this risk. So our value has changed, and right now it's time for you to figure out how your value changed and what you're going to do about it, and how you're going to help your customers understand it.
And I think this is really important when we start talking about the new normal. So before we decided, I have a solution, I'm going to look for problems, right? And so we go out to our customers and we look for problems. Instead of starting with our customer, looking at what's going on with them and deciding whether or not we have a solution that solves their problems, right? So it's kind of, we've been going around about it backwards, which means that we're always starting from us, starting from in and looking out instead of starting from out and looking in. And what the new normal means is that rather than assuming what their problem is, we're going to have to be more aware and more conscious of an ever-changing environment, more conscious of ever-changing needs. You know, I had a conversation with a new entrepreneur who was just about to launch her new company, which is a spa equipment company. And she was all about, I'm going to enable you to do this spa treatment that you've never been able to do before, that would have taken you 6 months to learn. And now you can do it, with very little training, which right now, no spa owner in the country cares about. But what she didn't realize was that her system allows you to provide a service without the provider touching the person who's receiving the service. That didn't matter to anybody a few weeks ago or a few months ago. It matters enormously now. She's able to go to all the medical spas and say, hey, here's something you can open up with tomorrow. Right? So, but this is not just because of COVID and the changes. This is the new reality. This is really understanding our customers and focusing on what their problems are and how we solve them, what's really going on in their world, and not just assuming what's going to matter to them. And again, Mark, we talked about this. This is not new. This is not different. It's just that what mattered before matters even more. Good selling is good selling, and it's going to work into the future. Bad selling is bad selling, and it's not going to work into the future. So, Mark, we have about 3 more minutes. Actually, not quite, about 2 more minutes. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about before we?
I think, value focus is no longer exceptional focus. It's survival. The same goes for business acumen, understanding your customer's business at least as well as they do. You are an expert in your product, but you are also the expert in how your product should affect their business. And that's got to be something that becomes part of your portfolio, your selling portfolio, understanding how your product affects their outcomes. And then finally, as we've said multiple times, the new normal is going to be a series of rolling changes. And so you're going to have to be adaptable and figure out constantly how that changes. So feel free to reach me, or go ahead and look for my book, Radical Value, on Amazon. And there's my email address. And Liz, why don't you go ahead and give your contact info?
Well, you can reach me. The easiest way to reach me is find Liz Heiman, Heiman, on LinkedIn. And start a conversation with me there. Let me know how you found me. I'm trying to actually get to the last slide so you can see it.
I think we can see it.
Oh, well, excellent. So good.
I'm seeing it anyway.
Well, that's really good, because I don't know where it is and I can't see it. So you can see my information there. And if you look at the attachments, you will find a whole bunch of links that might be useful for you, including a link to schedule an appointment with me. I didn't get a link to Mark's book, but it's if you go to Amazon and you type in Mark Boundy or Radical Value, you will find it. So, and then you can reach out to Mark at markboundyconsulting.com and ask him questions, or reach out to me and ask me questions. We have about 1 more minute, not even. We're about to we're about to get cut off. But if you have questions, please send them to us. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. Have a fabulous day, you guys, and keep selling. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.